It's like start and then finish, because so many people sit there with plans and scripts and ideas and wishes and dreams. Get on with it. Get on with it. Yeah, get on with it. I don't have a magic recipe for knowing what works and what doesn't. Even now, when something's worked, It's a Sin, which goes out in France on March 22nd. That's just gone out in this country. It's been an enormous success. It's been bizarre. So it just goes to prove that no one knows anything. I mean, a drama about AIDS in the middle of a pandemic right now, that doesn't sound like a good recipe for success, does it? It's like, I felt it was a drama I had to make, but I honestly didn't think it would be successful. So I don't know in the end. On some invisible level, you have to make a series that people want. The trouble is you never know what people want, but it's the reason why police dramas and hospital dramas are so eternally popular, because we want the law to catch the criminals. We want doctors to make us better. We want that. In a romance, we want a couple to get together, or if they shouldn't be, we want them to split up. It's like there's got to be you've worked hard all day, you come home, you sit down, you watch television. It's the Queen's Gambit. I've just started watching the Queen's Gambit, and I want her to win every game. I'm only on episode 2, and she hasn't lost so far, and I want her to win. I'm sitting there going, I know there'll be an episode where she loses, and then the next episode she'll win again, and I just want her to win. So after 30 years, I know nothing. That's what that proves. But somehow I keep thinking that somehow people have got to want it somehow. You've got to write what people want. And with something like It's a Sin, I discovered that people wanted to know the truth about the 1980s. I didn't realize how many people didn't know the truth about. Just when you have a good idea, treat it well. Treat it with the diligence and the respect that it deserves. I wrote a book about writing Doctor Who called The Writer's Tale. I have to say, that was written in the middle of making Doctor Who, which was Britain's most successful, which was number one show, not just number one drama, number one show. I was executive producer on 6 shows. It was insane. So when I wrote that book, that's not a normal working life. Even when I say you should work hard, that book, I can't look at that book. It's like opening a furnace. I open it like that. It's like, oh my God. I've been in this house for a very long time. So Queer as Folk was written here in this chair. It's literally here. My life hasn't moved really. I'm like Jabba the Hutt, just sitting here in my palace. I do find a piece of music that fits the drama. Like when I wrote It's a Sin, there was a lot of 80s music tracks. The whole of Queer as Folk was written to Sparks. That means you have to listen to it 100,000 times. And then until you stop listening to it. And it just becomes the noise that puts you in that zone.
The sad twat, he's wearing cheesecloth. Cheesecloth back.
He never went away. He disguised himself as linen.
Stephen Pollard. He was after me last Mardi Gras. He tried to snog me at the vigil. I'm in there. See ya.
I don't have a laptop. I don't want to do that. I don't want to sit on a train and work. Oh, I prefer to be on my own. I mean, Doctor Who is designed to be a big, popular show, 13 episodes a year, 14. We made 14 episodes a year. I didn't run a writer's room as such. I've worked in writer's room because I've worked in soap operas. I love working in writer's rooms. I love that a lot. I love sitting with other writers and talking to them, which we don't do enough, I think. I prefer to be sitting here with my own idea. I mean, Doctor Who was designed to be long running. It's meant to come back. So I had to work very hard to make it sustainable and to make it, that was the hardest job of my life because it was so successful. I discovered that keeping something successful is really hard work. I kind of like that. I think it's very kind of you to say so. And I think it's worth saying it is the gay male experience and the white gay male experience particularly. And there's a million other stories to be told. Nonetheless, I think a good drama is a good drama and speaks for everyone. If you play my 3 big series in chronological order, it would go It's a Sin in the 80s, and Queer as Folk at the end of the night, it's kind of the year 2000, and then Cucumber in 2015, and it is kind of one long story. And you see the aging process through it as well. They're kids, they're in their 30s, they're middle-aged. So I'm kind of proud of that. It's like, it doesn't matter whether anyone else is, but and in some ways it is a document of the age. It's like, if you want to see what that experience was like, not the entire experience. And I've tried when I did Banana.
I knew it. His name's Louis. Top that will flip for the right guy. 1825, no faceless torsos.
Oh, for Christ's sake, we're not even in a gay bar.
The whole world is a gay bar now.
That was very deliberately created to create lesbian stories. We had also, and there's a fantastic trans episode in there. So I've tried to increase the range of stuff and hold that door open for other people, which I've certainly done. It's written into my soul. It's one of the very first things I remember. I mean, in this country, it's hard to explain outside this country. Every country has these programs that it's there as a child. And when I say as a child, I can remember episodes for when I was 3 years old. And I can remember them. Some of those episodes are missing from the archives. They were wiped back in the 60s and 70s. And no one knew how valuable old television programs would be, especially old, cheap television programs like that. So the tapes were wiped. And there are episodes I remember from when I was 3 that don't exist anywhere. And there's like some black and white photographs proving that my memory is right. So it's something every child when in the 60s was sat down in front of Doctor Who to watch. Every single child watched it. And there were only 2 or 3 channels back then. And then some of us stayed watching it. So most kids got to 11 and they discovered football or sex or just life. And some of us just stayed loving it. And I've literally loved it all my life and held it precious. It's like I remember when I was a student and I left home when I was 18, I went to Oxford, and one of my main worries was like getting access to a television so I could watch Doctor Who. And this is before videotapes. And then that Christmas, 1981, my mother bought a videotape. So it was like, oh my God, she could tape them while I was away from home. That was a revolution in our house. Can you imagine now when every program is so available? That was, I was so happy when she got that. I mean, now it's a joy to get then to take over the show and to make it a success. Was when we worked on Doctor Who, we made it more of a success than it ever was during the 60s and 70s. So that was one of the great privileges of my life and a real joy and a great time for me anyway. A great time when I made friendships on that show that will last forever and worked with brilliant actors who I will love forever. So it was a really magical time. I think it's been there as a subtext or even as a text in every gay story I've ever written. Queer as Folk was quite remarkable in 1999 for not having AIDS and HIV as a story at all. That was absolutely deliberate. That is as much about HIV as writing about HIV, because in 1999 I was absolutely determined. I was absolutely sick of that virus having so much power over us and so much dominance over us and defining us. Gay life, and especially gay male life, was utterly defined by HIV. And part of the reason I think for the success of Queer as Folk, I just went, enough. We are far more interesting. We are far more valuable. It is there in Queer as Folk. It ticks away as a subtext. I've kind of been killing gay men off for a very long time, which I think is my experience of living through the 80s and 90s. I was 18 in 1981, just like the characters in It's a Sin. So that classic literary link between sex and death has been in my work very strongly from then. I mean, that's a classical thing to write anyway on a literary theme, but actually I felt that more keenly and portrayed that, even down to in Years and Years. There's no HIV stories in Years and Years, but the lead gay character is killed mercilessly after one rash night. I don't call that symbolic death, but it's something that keeps repeating in my work. There's a series called Cucumber, which a man is beaten to death on one bad night out. And it's one of the best things I've ever written, actually. It was time. A lot of my ideas, a lot of my shows I've been thinking about for decades, years and years. I've thought about for a very long time. Bob and Rose I thought about for a very long time. Queer as Folk built up ever since I was probably about 14, wanting to see myself on television and see gay life on television. I was kind of aware of a generation passing, that back then, men who would have died and I know HIV and AIDS affect men and women, that generations going, and so the stories were ceasing to be told and people weren't being remembered so much. I thought there was a danger of a gap. And of course, a lot of people, with a lot of men who died, the truth wasn't told about how they died. And I do think it's time to stop being ashamed of how someone died. I didn't realize, the shock of the show in transmitting was, I didn't realize how many people of all ages didn't know what happened in the AIDS epidemic. Ever since Doctor Who, since 2005, I've been working with a man called Andy Pryor, who is just brilliant. Not also that, he's brilliant at ethnic casting, at racial casting, and casting disabled, and he's a real pioneer in the field. In that, I think everything plays better when it's pitched as a comedy. I think I write stuff that's very smart and snappy, and I'm not the only one. There are a lot of television's written like that. But I think even when it's tragic, even when it's like episode 5 of It's a Sin, which gets as dark as it can possibly get, still, I think I write characters who are clever. I don't like writing people who are stupid. And I think a lot of writers do write characters who are stupid. I think a lot of writers automatically write their characters as stupid because they're in charge of them, because they've created them. We are cruel gods.
Alfred's the name of Batman's butler. Marvellous. Good name.
Alfred. What do you think?
Great.
It's like if I get an actor putting pauses into my work and slowing down. Listen to how fast I talk. Everyone talks much faster than people do on television.
Do you know what it really is, AIDS? It's a racket. It's a money-making scheme for drugs companies.
The cast of Queer as Folk was straight because actually the queer actors weren't even visible back then. In 2021, our conversations are about authenticity and truth. And this might change. It simply happens to be where we are now. In 10 years' time, we might be somewhere different. But I think what I get is an awful lot of gay actors telling me that they're not seen. You know, I'm nicely paid and I've got nice status and I win awards and stuff like that. And with that comes a responsibility to use your power. And I want to use my power on behalf of those who haven't got a voice. You know, we spend so much time fighting for equality that sometimes we forget to say we're not the same. Actually, we are gay when we're queer and we're different. And he had this great phrase. He said, "We bring a hot mess that comes with a lifetime of growing up in this education system, in a world that's fundamentally straight. It's very hard to capture that. So right now is a good time to capture that gayness and put it on screen, I think." Honestly, all the time telling me how queer as folk change their lives. I meet people who've moved to Manchester simply because of I met someone yesterday who moved to Manchester simply because of Cucumber.
Can I see you again?
Absolutely not.
I think you're beautiful. What?
I can take a bit of criticism. I think some of it's fair enough. I think some of it's rubbish. I think some of it's jealous. I think some of it's astute. That's fair enough. It'll never be perfect. You'll never please anyone. And honestly, when a gay or queer drama crops up on television, I sit and watch it. I'm first to complain if I don't like it. I know what it's like to sit at home and feel, oh, do you have to do this again? You know, I know there's of course there's people out there. It literally, as you can see, it doesn't stop me. It's very, very, and I would say, you know, I think there'll be writers and young writers watching this and young showrunners watching this or would-be showrunners. I think, you know, if you're passing so and I also think I'm lucky because I forged my career and I forged my voice and I forged my identity before social media really took hold. And I think it's a lot harder now. I think now, if you're 21 years old and you wrote your lesbian drama and it gets put on screen, if people don't like it, the voice, it's ferocious. It's absolutely ferocious. You have to be made of steel in order to survive that. I have been made of steel for a very long time. I've had a long time to forge that. Keep people happy. It's very tough on set. And, you know, I think we've gone through a great sort of Me Too era. I think the next stage of the whole Me Too discovery is an equal problem on sets is anger. It's not just sexual behavior. And largely you're talking about men, but not only. And people, definitely not only, actually. It's like people who think that anger and rudeness and ego are the way to, and you know, when I say rudeness, I mean genuine hostility towards people are the ways to run programs. I hope that's the next bastion to fall. The fact that you don't have to be a monster to make these things. You can actually be nice to people. And the whole experience is much nicer. So I'd say that to showrunners. It's like so many showrunners are out of their depth. I mean, so many showrunners are promoted very quickly. And actually, you're a leader of men when you're a showrunner. You're a leader and women. You're head of the team. And that's not taught to people. That's a pretty tricky thing to have learned in life. Most people aren't team leaders. Most people aren't. And a lot of writers are promoted very quickly up to become showrunner. And there's a lot of management skills needed. There's a lot of human resources skills needed. There's a lot of politeness and kindness and insight needed. So I would say that's my showrunner's advice, is to say you are running a team, so you need to be a team leader. The email I get most often is like, I've got an idea. Will you help me write it? I've got an idea. What do I do with it? How do I get it written? And the answer is just go and write it. And then you need to finish, because there's an awful lot of unwritten ideas in the world. But there's even more half-written ideas in the world, I think. All these scripts sitting everywhere, just 20 pages written, or get on with it. I think we're living in a true, proper golden age. I think, sorry not to know more about European content, and I should do, but you know, all I can speak for British content like Small Axe and I May Destroy You.
I caught the wave, I caught the sharks and they swim with the fishes.
And I Hate Susie, Succession from Britain. I mean, it's like, I genuinely sit here thinking, oh my God, I need to raise my standards because the standard of writing is now so high. But I don't mean that to be intimidating or scary for new writers. I think what that means for new writers is you can aim as high as you like. It's no longer true. You can sit there. the greatest censor and the greatest problem in writing is the writer, because I think writers sit at home in rooms like this thinking they'll never accept that. I can't do that. This isn't mainstream. This isn't acceptable. Or here's a great idea. No, it's too extreme. And then television now is showing that as long as you have the courage of your convictions, as long as you have integrity, then your ideas can be wild and mad and brilliant and personal. That's the point. It can be as absolutely as personal as you want it to be. I thought I knew television. I thought I knew how writing worked. I was grand enough at my age to sit here thinking, maybe I've got it sussed. And then I made a story that comes along and you sit there going, oh, I don't even know how you begin to write that. That is absolutely extraordinary. And it makes me think, right, raise your standards, try harder. That's what's happening now. People are thinking deeper. I think we're just getting deeper into the soul. And that's an extraordinary journey to be on. That's brilliant. So, yeah, do it.
Konbini.